The taxi slowed to a stop in front of my house, but it didn't feel like home anymore. My hands trembled as I clutched my bag, the hospital bracelet still tight around my wrist. I'd spent weeks longing for this moment, picturing the comfort of my own bed, the familiar scent of roses from the garden, the gentle creak of the porch swing. But as I stepped out, I saw a moving van in the driveway and strangers carrying boxes through the front door. My heart pounded, confusion and dread twisting inside me. A young couple, laughing and chatting, disappeared inside with a lamp I recognized from my living room. My breath caught. I looked up and saw Lisa, my daughter-in-law, standing on the porch. She held a set of keys in her hand, her face carefully blank. For a moment I thought I must be dreaming, that the painkillers from the hospital were playing tricks on me. But the scene was all too real. "Lisa?" My voice was barely more than a whisper. "What's going on? Who are these people?" She didn't meet my eyes. "Margaret, you're home early. I thought you'd be staying at the rehab center a bit longer." Her words were smooth, practiced, but her fingers fidgeted with the keys. I stared at her, searching her face for answers. "Why are there strangers in my house? Why are they moving my things?" Lisa hesitated, then straightened her shoulders. "It's not your house anymore, Margaret. I sold it. It was for the best. You need somewhere smaller, somewhere safer. I took care of everything." The world tilted. My home, my sanctuary, gone, just like that. I felt the betrayal like a physical blow, sharp and cold. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but the words stuck in my throat. How could she do this? How could my own family betray me so completely? But what my daughter-in-law didn't know was that I had secrets of my own, secrets that would change everything. My name is Margaret, and for most of my life, this house was my world. I moved in as a young bride, hand in hand with my husband, Robert. We painted the walls together, planted the rose bushes out front, and filled every room with laughter and dreams. Robert was my anchor, steady, kind, and endlessly patient. He built shelves for my books, fixed every leaky faucet, and held me close through every storm. When he passed away, the house felt emptier, but I clung to the memories we'd made, determined to keep his spirit alive in every corner. Our son, David, was the light of our lives. He was a gentle boy, always quick to help, always eager to make us proud. I watched him grow from a curious child into a thoughtful man, and when he brought Lisa home for the first time, I welcomed her with open arms. She was bright, ambitious, and full of ideas for the future. I wanted to believe she would love David as fiercely as I did, that she would cherish the family we'd built. But as the years passed, I began to notice small changes. Lisa had a way of taking charge, of making decisions before anyone else had a chance to speak. She'd rearrange the furniture without asking, insist on new routines, and gently nudge me out of conversations about the house or family plans. At first, I told myself it was just her way. She liked things orderly, efficient. But sometimes I caught a glint in her eye that made me uneasy, as if she saw me as an obstacle rather than a partner. Still, I tried to be gracious. I cooked Sunday dinners, baked birthday cakes, and offered to watch their children whenever they needed a break. I wanted to be useful, to show Lisa that I was more than just an old woman clinging to the past. I remembered my own mother-in-law, how she'd made me feel welcome, and I tried to do the same. But there were moments, quiet, stinging moments, when I felt invisible, my opinions brushed aside, my presence tolerated rather than cherished. David, caught between us, tried to keep the peace. He'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "Don't mind her, Mom. She means well." I wanted to believe him, but the distance between Lisa and me only grew. She started handling the bills, managing the repairs, even speaking to the neighbors on my behalf. I told myself it was a relief, that I deserved to rest after so many years of hard work. But deep down, I missed being needed. I missed being seen. There were times late at night when I'd sit by the window and remember the woman I used to be. I was never afraid to speak my mind, to stand up for what mattered. I'd organized charity drives, led the PTA, and fought for my family with every ounce of strength I had. I'd survived heartbreak, loss, and disappointment, always finding a way to carry on. But now, as the years crept by, I felt myself shrinking, my world growing smaller with every decision made without me. Lisa's influence became more pronounced after Robert died. She'd suggest that I downsize, hint that the house was too much for me. "You deserve to relax, Margaret," she'd say, her tone sweet but insistent. "Let us take care of things." I smiled and nodded, but inside I bristled. This house was more than bricks and mortar. It was my history, my legacy, the last piece of Robert I had left. If only they knew what I was truly capable of. If only they remembered the woman who built this family, who weathered every storm and kept going. I may have seemed fragile, but I was far from helpless. I had secrets of my own, strengths I'd kept hidden, waiting for the moment I'd need them most. I tried to hold on to the rhythms of daily life, tending the garden, reading to my grandchildren, baking bread on quiet afternoons. But the sense of being edged out, of losing control over my own life, grew stronger with each passing day. I wondered if David noticed, if he saw the way Lisa's decisions slowly erased my place in the family. I wondered if he remembered the stories I'd told him as a boy, the lessons I'd tried to teach about loyalty, honesty, and love. And then, one ordinary morning, everything changed. A fall in the kitchen, a rush to the hospital, and suddenly I was gone from the house I'd spent a lifetime building. I trusted my family to care for things in my absence, never imagining that trust would be betrayed. If only they knew what I was truly capable of, what I still had left to fight for. The fall happened so quickly, I barely remember the details. One moment I was reaching for a jar on the top shelf. The next, I was on the cold kitchen floor, pain radiating through my hip. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and worried faces, and the hospital became my world for weeks. White walls, the steady beep of machines, nurses with gentle hands and kind eyes. I tried to focus on healing, telling myself I'd be home soon, back to my garden and my books, back to the life I'd built. Lisa visited a few times, always brisk and efficient. She brought me a change of clothes, a stack of magazines, and updates about the house. "Don't worry about a thing, Margaret," she'd say, her smile tight. "I'm handling everything." David came less often, his visits rushed and distracted. He'd squeeze my hand, promise to check on the roses, and then disappear, always with an apology on his lips. I told myself they were busy, that they cared in their own way, but a quiet ache settled in my chest. It was a nurse named Clara who first hinted that something was wrong. She was young, with a quick wit and a gentle touch, and she liked to linger by my bedside, sharing stories about her own grandmother. One afternoon, as she fluffed my pillows, she hesitated. "Mrs. Evans, I hope you don't mind me asking, but is everything all right at home? I overheard your daughter-in-law on the phone. She was talking about selling a house. She sounded urgent." My heart skipped a beat. "Selling a house? That can't be right. She wouldn't do that without telling me." Clara's eyes softened. "I just thought you should know. Sometimes families make decisions when they think someone isn't coming home." The words echoed in my mind long after she left. I tried to call David, but he didn't answer. Lisa's responses to my texts were vague, full of reassurances but no real answers. I felt a cold dread settle over me, a sense that something precious was slipping through my fingers. When I was finally discharged, I insisted on going straight home. The taxi ride was tense, my mind racing with questions and fears. But nothing could have prepared me for the sight of strangers moving into my house, for the look on Lisa's face as she handed over the keys. I never imagined my own family would do this to me. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound, leaving me raw and hollow. But as I stood on the sidewalk, watching my life being packed away, something inside me shifted. The heartbreak was real, but beneath it, a spark of resolve began to flicker. I would not let this be the end of my story. I stood on the sidewalk, numb, as the moving van rumbled away and the new owners disappeared inside my house. The world felt unsteady, as if the ground itself had shifted beneath my feet. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all I could do was watch as the life I'd built was carried away in cardboard boxes. Lisa lingered on the porch, her eyes darting between me and the door, as if she couldn't decide whether to comfort me or run from what she'd done. That night, I stayed in a small guest room at David and Lisa's house. The walls were bare, the bed too soft, and the air heavy with unspoken words. I lay awake, replaying every moment of the past few months, searching for clues I'd missed. How had Lisa managed to sell my house? What had she done while I was helpless in the hospital? The questions gnawed at me, refusing to let me rest. The next morning, I waited until David left for work before I approached Lisa. She was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, her face a mask of calm. "Lisa," I said quietly, "I need to see the paperwork for the house. I want to understand what happened." She looked up, her expression unreadable. "Margaret, it's all taken care of. The house was too much for you. I did what needed to be done." I pressed on, refusing to be dismissed. "I want to see the documents. Please." She hesitated, then shrugged, pulling a folder from a drawer. "If it will make you feel better." She handed it over, her fingers lingering just a moment too long. I took the folder to my room, my hands trembling as I flipped through the pages. The signatures looked like mine, but something felt off, too neat, too practiced. I studied the dates, the notary stamps, the legal jargon. My heart pounded as I realized what Lisa had done. She'd forged my signature, used her connections to push the sale through, and exploited every loophole she could find. The betrayal was staggering, but so was her cunning. As I sat there, the memories came flooding back, happier times, when trust was easy and love was simple. I remembered Robert's laughter as he painted the living room, David's first steps on the kitchen tiles, the way Lisa had once looked at me with genuine warmth. I remembered family dinners, birthday parties, the sound of children's laughter echoing through the halls. Those memories felt like another life, one that had slowly faded as Lisa's influence grew. I thought back to the first time I noticed the change. It was after Robert's funeral, when Lisa began taking over the household decisions. She'd insisted on handling the bills, managing the repairs, even choosing the new paint for the living room. At first, I was grateful for the help, but soon I realized I was being edged out of my own life. David, always eager to keep the peace, told me not to worry. "Lisa's just trying to help, Mom. Let her take care of things." I wanted to believe him. But the distance between us grew with every decision made without me. Now, as I pieced together the evidence of Lisa's betrayal, I saw how carefully she'd planned it all. She'd waited until I was vulnerable, until David was distracted, until no one was watching. She'd forged my signature, sold my house, and expected me to accept it without a fight. But she didn't know me as well as she thought. David came home late that evening, his face drawn and tired. I waited until Lisa was out of earshot before I spoke. "David, did you know about the sale? Did you sign anything?" He looked away, shame flickering across his features. "Lisa said it was for the best. She said you'd agreed, that you wanted to move somewhere smaller." I didn't want to believe it, but I trusted her. I felt a pang of sorrow for my son, caught between loyalty and guilt. "David, she forged my signature." "She sold the house without my consent." His eyes widened in horror. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I should have asked more questions. I should have protected you." I squeezed his hand, my anger softening for a moment. "It's not too late, David, but I need your help. We have to find out what else Lisa has done." Together, we began to dig deeper. I called the real estate agent listed on the documents, pretending to be Lisa. The agent, eager to please, revealed more than he should have. Lisa had insisted on a quick sale, pushing through the paperwork in record time. She'd even arranged for the new owners to move in before the ink was dry. The more I learned, the clearer it became. Lisa's motives ran deeper than simple greed. I started to notice other things. Bank statements with large withdrawals, credit card bills I didn't recognize, whispered phone calls late at night. Lisa was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. I began to suspect that she was in trouble, that the sale of my house was just the beginning. As I pieced together the puzzle, I found myself thinking back to the woman I used to be. I remembered the strength I'd shown after Robert's death, the way I'd fought for my family, the secrets I'd kept to protect them. I realized that Lisa had no idea what I'd hidden all these years, no idea that I was far from helpless. The tension in the house grew with each passing day. Lisa became more guarded, watching me with wary eyes. David grew distant, torn between his wife and his mother. I felt the weight of the past pressing down on me, but I also felt a spark of hope. I wasn't alone, not anymore. I had allies, and I had the truth on my side. But Lisa had no idea what I'd hidden all these years. She thought she'd won, that I was too weak to fight back. She was wrong, and soon she would learn just how much strength I still had left. The house may have been sold, but not every secret had left its walls. As I sifted through the folder of forged documents, a memory surfaced, one I'd tucked away for years, never imagining I'd need it. After Robert's first heart attack, we'd sat together at the kitchen table, hands entwined, and talked about the future. He'd insisted we draw up a second will, one that would protect me if anything ever happened, one that no one else knew about except the lawyer who'd helped us. We'd hidden it in a place only I would think to look, inside the hollow base of the old grandfather clock, behind the faded family photos. That night, while Lisa and David slept, I crept downstairs, heart pounding. The clock stood silent in the hallway, its face dim in the moonlight. My fingers trembled as I reached behind the photos, feeling for the small latch Robert had shown me. It clicked open, and there, wrapped in a yellowed envelope, was the will. I pressed it to my chest, relief and gratitude flooding through me. Robert had always known how to protect me, even from beyond the grave. The next morning I called Helen, an old friend from my church days who'd spent her career as an attorney. She answered on the first ring, her voice warm and steady. I told her everything about the fall, the forged documents, the sale, and the will. She listened without interruption, then said, "Bring it to me, Margaret. We'll make this right." With Helen's help, I began to quietly gather evidence. We made copies of the will, compared signatures, and documented every irregularity in the sale. Helen explained that the secret will, properly witnessed and notarized, would override any fraudulent documents Lisa had created. "You have more power than you think," she told me. "But we need to be careful. Lisa can't know what we're doing until we're ready." I felt a surge of resolve, stronger than anything I'd felt since Robert died. For so long I'd let others make decisions for me, believing it was easier to keep the peace. But now I saw how that silence had cost me. I was done being overlooked, done letting others decide my fate. I was Margaret Evans, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. Helen and I worked in secret, meeting at her house or in quiet corners of the library. She coached me on what to say, what to ask, and how to protect myself if Lisa tried to retaliate. I started keeping a journal, recording every conversation, every suspicious transaction, every detail that might help our case. I even reached out to the notary who'd signed the original will, confirming its validity and gathering a statement. Meanwhile, I watched Lisa more closely than ever. I noticed the way she flinched when I mentioned Robert, the way her eyes darted away when I asked about the house. I saw the cracks in her confidence, the fear that she might be discovered. David, sensing the tension, tried to bridge the gap, but I could see the guilt weighing on him. I reassured him as best I could, telling him I loved him, that I didn't blame him for trusting his wife. But I also made it clear that I would not be pushed aside. The more evidence I gathered, the stronger I felt. I was no longer the frail woman Lisa thought she could manipulate. I was the keeper of my family's legacy, the protector of Robert's memory, and the rightful owner of my home. They thought I was powerless. They were wrong. As Helen and I prepared for the next step, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, that Lisa would not give up easily. But I also knew that I was not alone. I had allies, I had the truth, and most importantly, I had the will, both the document and the determination, to see this through. They thought I was powerless. They were wrong. And soon, everyone would know just how strong I truly was. Helen and I became a quiet force, moving with purpose beneath the surface of daily life. Each morning, I woke with a new sense of resolve, no longer drifting through the days as a guest in my own story. Instead, I was a woman on a mission, determined to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Helen's confidence was contagious. She guided me through the legal maze, teaching me how to gather evidence, how to document every detail, and how to protect myself from further harm. We started with the basics. I made a list of every suspicious transaction, every unexplained withdrawal, and every bill that had arrived in my name but never crossed my desk. Helen helped me request copies of the sale documents from the county office, and together we pored over them, line by line. The forged signatures were obvious to us, but we needed more, proof that would stand up in court. Helen reached out to a trusted handwriting expert who agreed to examine the documents and provide a statement. I felt a surge of hope as the pieces began to fall into place. Meanwhile, I kept my eyes open at home. Lisa grew more anxious with each passing day, her temper flaring over the smallest things. She snapped at David, hovered over the mail, and watched me with a wary suspicion that only confirmed my fears. I played the part of the frail, confused mother-in-law, careful not to reveal how much I knew. But inside, I was gathering strength, fueled by the knowledge that justice was within reach. In the quiet moments, I found myself reflecting on the woman I'd become. For years, I'd let others make decisions for me, believing it was easier to keep the peace. I told myself that sacrifice was the price of love, that my needs could wait. But now, as I watched Lisa's web of lies unravel, I realized how much I'd given up: my voice, my independence, my sense of self. I thought of Robert, of the promises we'd made to each other, and I knew he would want me to fight. He'd always admired my stubbornness, my refusal to back down when something mattered. I could almost hear his voice, gentle but firm. "Don't let them take what's yours, Margaret. Stand tall." Helen and I met with the notary who'd witnessed the secret will. She remembered Robert and me, remembered the day we'd come to her office, nervous but determined. Her statement, along with the will itself, became the cornerstone of our case. The handwriting expert's report confirmed what we already knew. The signatures on the sale documents were forgeries. We gathered bank records, phone logs, and even a few emails Lisa had carelessly left open on the family computer. Each piece of evidence was a thread, and together they formed a net strong enough to catch even the most slippery lies. As the case grew, so did my confidence. I began to walk taller, to speak with more authority. I stopped apologizing for taking up space, for asking questions, for demanding answers. David noticed the change, and though he was still torn, I saw a flicker of pride in his eyes. He started spending more time with me, asking about my day, listening to my stories. I realized that reclaiming my power wasn't just about the house. It was about restoring my place in the family, about reminding everyone, including myself, that I mattered. The night before our confrontation, I sat alone in the guest room, the secret will in my lap. I thought about everything I stood to lose: my home, my dignity, my family. But I also thought about everything I'd already survived. I'd weathered storms, buried loved ones, and built a life from the ground up. I was not a woman to be underestimated. I had one chance to save everything I loved. One chance to show Lisa and everyone else that I was not powerless. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me. Tomorrow, I would face my daughter-in-law, not as a victim, but as a woman who had reclaimed her strength. I was ready for the fight, ready to demand justice, ready to take back my life. And as I turned out the light, I knew that whatever happened next, I would never again let anyone decide my worth for me. The morning of the confrontation dawned gray and heavy, as if the sky itself sensed the storm brewing inside our home. I moved through the house with a quiet purpose, the secret will and a folder of evidence tucked beneath my arm. Helen arrived just after breakfast, her presence a steady anchor. She greeted David and Lisa with a polite smile, but her eyes were sharp, missing nothing. I asked everyone to gather in the living room, my voice calm but unyielding. There was no more pretending, no more waiting for the right moment. The time had come. David sat on the edge of the sofa, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Lisa stood by the window, arms crossed, her jaw set in defiance. Helen took a seat beside me, her briefcase resting at her feet. I looked at each of them, letting the silence stretch until even Lisa shifted uncomfortably. "I called this meeting because I need the truth," I began, my voice steady. "No more secrets. No more lies. I know what happened to my house, and I know how it happened." Lisa's eyes narrowed. "Margaret, I already explained." I held up a hand, silencing her. "You explained nothing. You made decisions for me, forged my signature, and sold my home behind my back. I have proof." I opened the folder, spreading the documents across the coffee table. "These are the sale papers, the forged signatures, the bank records. And this," I held up the will, my hand unwavering, "is the real will Robert and I made together. It overrides everything you did." David's face went pale. "Mom, is this true?" Helen spoke, her voice crisp and clear. "The will is valid, witnessed, and notarized." The signatures on the sale documents have been confirmed as forgeries by a handwriting expert. Margaret's rights were violated and the sale is illegal. Lisa's composure cracked. You don't understand. I did it for the family. We needed the money. The house was falling apart and you were never going to let go. I was trying to save us. I stared at her, searching for the woman I once welcomed into my life. You could have come to me. You could have asked for help. Instead, you lied. You stole from me. You made me feel like I didn't matter. Tears welled in Lisa's eyes, but her anger flared. You always made me feel like an outsider. No matter what I did, I was never good enough. David always ran to you for advice. The kids loved you more than me, and I was just there. I wanted something of my own. I wanted to prove I could take care of this family. David's voice broke, raw with pain. Lisa, why didn't you tell me? Why did you drag me into this? She turned on him, her voice trembling. Because you never listened. You always took her side. I was drowning, David. The bills, the repairs, the pressure, it was too much. I thought if I fixed it all, you'd finally see me. The room was thick with emotion, the air charged with years of resentment and regret. I felt my own tears rising, but I refused to let them fall. Lisa, I never wanted you to feel alone. I tried to welcome you, to make you part of this family, but you pushed me away, little by little, until I barely recognized my own home. Helen cleared her throat, her tone gentle but firm. There are consequences for what you've done, Lisa. The sale will be reversed, and you could face legal action. But more than that, you've broken the trust of the people who loved you. Lisa sank into a chair, her bravado gone. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. I was scared, and I made terrible choices. David reached for her hand, his own eyes shining with tears. We should have talked to each other. We should have faced our problems together. I looked at my son, my heart aching for the boy I'd raised. David, I forgive you. I know you were caught in the middle, but we have to rebuild, all of us. We can't go back, but we can choose what comes next. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the distant ticking of the grandfather clock, a reminder of all the time we'd lost to pride and fear. I thought of Robert, of the life we'd built, and I knew he would want us to find a way forward. But as the tension in the room began to ease, Lisa looked up, her face pale. There's something else you need to know, Margaret. Something I never told anyone, my breath caught. What is it? She hesitated, glancing at David, then back at me. It's about the money, the reason I was so desperate. I have debts, not just from the house, but from before I married David. I thought I could fix it all before anyone found out, but it just kept getting worse. The confession hung in the air, heavy and raw. I realized then that the betrayal ran deeper than I'd imagined, that Lisa's actions were born not just of greed, but of fear and shame. The biggest secret was still to come, and I braced myself for what it might mean for all of us. As the morning light crept across the floor, I knew that the hardest part was not the fight for my home, but the fight for forgiveness, for understanding, for the family we all still longed to be. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, difficult conversations, and the slow, painful process of setting things right. Helen moved swiftly, filing the necessary documents to reverse the sale and alerting the authorities to Lisa's forgery. The new owners, though understandably upset, were sympathetic when they learned the truth. With the will and the expert testimony, the court ruled in my favor. My home, my sanctuary, was returned to me, and the fraudulent sale was wiped from the record. But legal victories could not erase the wounds left behind. Lisa was charged with fraud, though the judge, seeing her remorse and the tangled web of debt and desperation that had driven her, offered a path of restitution and community service instead of jail. She was required to attend counseling and financial education, and to make amends to me and the family. The consequences were real, but so was the chance for her to rebuild her life, if she chose to take it. David was shaken to his core. He apologized again and again, his voice thick with regret. I should have protected you, Mom. I should have seen what was happening. I held his hand and told him what I'd come to understand. That love sometimes blinds us, that trust can be both a gift and a burden. We all make mistakes, David. What matters is what we do next. Lisa's apology was quieter, but no less sincere. She stood before me, her eyes red-rimmed, her hands trembling. "I can't undo what I did, Margaret. I can only promise to do better if you'll let me." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just the woman who had betrayed me, but the frightened, overwhelmed person beneath. I nodded, not with easy forgiveness, but with the hope that she could change. The family was left with a choice. We could let bitterness and blame define us, or we could try to heal. It wasn't easy. There were days when anger flared, when old wounds reopened, when trust seemed impossible. But there were also moments of grace, shared meals, quiet conversations, the tentative rebuilding of bonds that had nearly been broken for good. I reclaimed my home. But more importantly, I reclaimed my dignity. I realized that my worth was not tied to the walls around me, but to the strength I carried within. I had stood up for myself, not out of spite, but out of love, for my husband's memory, for my son, for the family I still wanted to believe in. My legacy was not just the house, but the lesson that it's never too late to fight for what's right. Lisa began to change, slowly but surely. She took responsibility for her actions, worked to pay off her debts, and started volunteering at a local shelter. She and David went to counseling together, learning to communicate in ways they never had before. The children, sensing the shift, grew closer to me again, their laughter filling the house with a new kind of hope. But could we ever truly heal? That question lingered in the quiet moments, in the spaces between forgiveness and forgetting. I knew that some scars would remain, that trust, once broken, is never quite the same. Yet I also knew that healing is a journey, not a destination. Each day brought a new chance to choose love over resentment, hope over regret. As I walked through my garden, the roses blooming brighter than ever, I felt a sense of peace. I had lost much, but I had gained something too, a deeper understanding of myself, of my family, of the power of standing up for what matters. My story was not just one of loss, but of redemption, of the quiet, stubborn courage that can change everything. And as the sun set over the house I had fought so hard to save, I knew that while the past could not be changed, the future was still ours to shape, one honest, hopeful day at a time. The weeks after the court's decision were filled with a quiet, careful rebuilding. My home was mine again, but it felt different, emptier in some ways, yet also full of possibility. Lisa and David moved into a small apartment nearby, determined to start over. They visited often, sometimes together, sometimes separately, always with a sense of humility and a desire to make things right. Lisa brought flowers from the market, her hands shaking as she arranged them in the vase Robert had given me on our 30th anniversary. David fixed the leaky faucet in the kitchen, his eyes meeting mine with a silent apology that needed no words. We began to gather for Sunday dinners again. Though the first few were awkward, the conversation stilted and careful. The children sensed the tension, but also the hope. Sophie, my granddaughter, asked if she could help me bake bread, her laughter ringing through the kitchen as she dusted flour on her nose. Little by little, the house filled with warmth again, the kind that comes not from perfection, but from the willingness to try. I found myself reflecting on all that had happened, the pain and the betrayal, but also the strength I'd discovered within myself. I realized that respect is not something to be quietly hoped for. It must be claimed, sometimes even demanded. I thought of all the times I'd let myself be overlooked, believing it was easier to keep the peace, and I promised myself I would never again let my voice be silenced. Standing up for myself had not only restored my dignity, but had also reminded my family of who I truly was. Lisa's journey toward redemption was not easy. She attended her counseling sessions faithfully, worked long hours to pay back what she owed, and volunteered at the community center, helping others who had lost their way. There were setbacks, moments when old habits resurfaced, when anger or shame threatened to undo the progress we'd made. But each time, she came back, a little stronger, a little more honest. I saw in her the woman I'd once hoped she would become, and I found it in my heart to forgive, even if forgetting would take longer. David, too, changed. He became more present, more attentive, no longer hiding behind busyness or excuses. He listened to me, really listened, and began to share his own fears and hopes. Our relationship deepened, built now on mutual respect rather than obligation. The children, seeing the adults around them grow and change, blossomed in their own ways, their laughter and energy a balm to all our wounds. One afternoon, as we sat in the garden, Lisa turned to me and asked, "Would you like to plan a family trip, Margaret? Somewhere you've always wanted to go?" The question caught me off guard, but it was the clearest sign yet that things were changing. For the first time in years, I felt not just included, but truly seen. We began to dream together of mountains and lakes, of new memories waiting to be made, this time with me at the center. What would you have done, I wonder, if you were in my place? Would you have fought for your home, your dignity, your place in the family? Or would you have let yourself be pushed aside, believing your time had passed? I hope, if you ever find yourself standing at a crossroads, you remember that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to be heard, but some wounds take longer to heal. Forgiveness is a process, and trust, once broken, must be rebuilt one day at a time. Still, I believe in new beginnings. And as I look around my table, surrounded by the people I love, I know that hope is always worth fighting for. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, someone you thought would always be on your side? Maybe it was a family member, a close friend, or someone you depended on, only to discover they were making decisions behind your back. If you were in my place, watching your home and your legacy slip away, what would you have done? Would you have fought back, or would you have let it go, believing it was too late to change the outcome? I'd love to hear your thoughts and your stories. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when no one else would? Did you find the strength to reclaim your voice, or are you still searching for it? Please share your experiences in the comments below. Your wisdom might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true stories about family, justice, and redemption. Your support helps us bring more real-life lessons and emotional journeys to light. And if you're curious about what happens when secrets from the past come to the surface, stay tuned. Next time, we'll reveal what happened when a long-lost letter changed the fate of an entire family. You won't want to miss it. Remember, it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to seek justice, or to begin again. What would you have done in Margaret's place? Let's talk about it below.